Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something that is, honestly, incredibly profound. We're looking at a framework called Windows Zero. Now, if you've ever felt like the justice system is just this sterile, cold machine that's completely disconnected from actual human lives, well, you definitely aren't alone. Windows Zero is this fascinating philosophical framework that completely dismantles that whole ivory tower approach to law. It actually reveals the deeply human, grounded origins behind how we analyze, critique, and ultimately build legal systems. It's all about figuring out exactly where the analyst is standing before the analysis even begins.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover what is Windows Zero, the inner world, forming the concept, the outer world, the methodological confession, and finally, a shared journey. All right, let's jump right in.
Starting off with Section 1. What is Windows Zero? This is the foundation before the 5 windows.
Now, what is really striking here is just the sheer vulnerability of it. The author, Amirmahmad Ardalan, writes, "I am first and foremost an Iranian human being breathing in the Tehran of 1405. He immediately grounds his entire philosophy, not in some high-minded abstract theory, but in his own physical, breathing existence. He's a living human being long before he's a researcher or a jurist or a philosopher. He brings his history, his culture, his language, and the very concrete concerns of his environment into his analysis. So there's no impossible God's eye view here, right? The analysis comes from a very specific, deeply lived reality."
To truly understand his environment, we have to define what he's actually pushing against, and that is functional drudge. Just think of those everyday bureaucratic nightmares where laws literally do not work. This represents the daily legal chaos and the systemic failures that he witnesses firsthand. He talks about seeing in actual courtrooms and case files property being twisted into an instrument of domination. He sees liability just getting completely lost in the absolute labyrinth of trying to prove fault. These broken promises and daily encounters with injustice, that is the raw material of his thought process.
Moving on to Section 2, the inner world, which covers steps 1 through 3 of the chain.
So the crucial point is captured perfectly in these first 3 steps. It's like a domino effect. Step 1, the legal analyst first exists as a human breathing in their specific life world, their unique everyday reality. Step 2, they have lived experiences. These are those daily encounters with the injustice and broken systems we just talked about. And then bam, step 3, intuitive apprehension. This is where those lived experiences coalesce into a normative perception. It's not just some vague feeling, it's a sudden, sharp realization of what the right order should be. It's that internal voice screaming, "This is injustice," or "This system is just not viable." The analyst intuitively apprehends that something absolutely must change, and urgently.
And what exactly is that sense of the right order? Well, the author calls it asha. This brilliantly illustrates that internal burning desire for true order, or saman, to replace the deceit and the chaos of druj. It's the intuitive sense of truth that naturally rises up when you witness legal dysfunction. But here's the catch. An intuitive sense, a gut feeling, just isn't enough to reform a nation's laws, right? It has to be translated.
Which brings us to Section 3, forming the concept. This is the crucial pivot point.
Let's look at how this builds into the exact moment of translation. We have this raw, internal feeling of justice, that intuitive apprehension and the sense of asha we were just discussing. But then we have the language of law. The analyst has to take this sense of asha and translate it into concrete, workable concepts, like the triaxial scale. Those intuitive, poetic words have to become structural concepts like justice, liability, and property. The author forms the concept of what he calls the Ashaic order. It's literally moving from the heart to the mind. He's bringing a structured vision of justice to life using the formal language of law.
Next up, Section 4, the outer world. This covers steps 5 through 7 of the chain.
Just like we had a chain for the inner world, we've got one for the outer world too. Look at step 5, social recognition. For a concept to actually be viable, it has to break out of the analyst's mind and enter the public sphere of discourse. Like, does society actually accept it? The author presents these concepts through projects, like the Persian Renaissance, so the legal community can embrace them or challenge them. If it survives all that critique in step 6, it becomes a normative order, which is a functional system of obligations and prohibitions. And finally, step 7, it crystallizes into a legal institution. We're talking actual laws, real courts, and real enforcement mechanisms. This beautifully contrasts the 2 driving forces of this entire framework. The author frames this as giving Hafez's intuition a home within Darius's order. Hafez represents the poetic, internal, deeply human sense of right and truth.
that gut intuition. Darius, on the other hand, represents the rigid, functional, normative legal system. The whole goal of moving from the inner world to the outer world is basically ensuring that the cold, functional mechanics of the law actually house the beating, poetic heart of true justice.
Ultimately, the goal of reconstructing Iran's legal institutions through this magnificent seven-step chain is to realize three absolutely core outcomes for society: predictability, viability, and synergy. When Hafez's intuition successfully structures Darius's order, what do you get? You get a legal system that citizens can actually rely on, a system that works in the real world, and a system where all the different parts cooperate seamlessly.
All right, Section 5, the methodological confession. Let's map out this journey.
Take a second to really digest this matrix. It brilliantly summarizes the entire seven-step chain we just covered, but it maps every single theoretical step directly back to the author's own deeply personal position. From step 1, his existence as an Iranian human under the pressure of functional druge, all the way down to step 7, his goal of reconstructing Iran's legal institutions. He is basically dropping a pin on his exact coordinates on the map. He's not hiding behind some wall of academic distance. He's laying all his cards on the table, showing you exactly how his specific life world generated these specific legal concepts.
And that leads us perfectly to Section 6, a shared journey, where we look at the ethics of the Persian Renaissance.
The author declares his path so clearly in this powerful quote, "This is my path." He is fully, 100% owning his specific perspective and existence, rather than pretending to have some impossible, neutral objectivity. By showing you his exact journey from human existence to legal institution, from Hafez to Darius, he's literally handing you the blueprint of his own mind.
And that brings us to the core ethics of this entire methodology. It's rooted in radical transparency. The author explicitly states that he claims no neutrality. But, because he has made his path so incredibly transparent, it becomes an invitation. It's not about forcing an ideology or making an imposition upon the reader. It is a transparent invitation to engage, to understand where these ideas actually come from, and to evaluate them on their own merits out in the public sphere.
So the author has laid bare his entire intellectual and personal journey. We've seen how a legal theory isn't just born in a vacuum, right? It starts with a human being breathing in a specific time and place, feeling the sting of injustice, and methodically translating that feeling into a system of order. So having seen how lived experience can methodically rebuild the very foundations of law, the real question is this: are you ready to retrace this path, critique its concepts, challenge it, and walk beside the author on this shared journey? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.